This is Rob Tebbutt for Boxing Social in association with Betfred. Delighted, as always, to be joined by one of my most favourite people in boxing, Kevin Barry. How are you, Kev? Nice to see you.
Rob, I'm great. I'm great, mate. Happy New Year, my brother. Great to be back with you.
It's always great to have you here. How are you? Where are you? Is probably the first question I should ask you.
Mate, I'm in New Zealand. Usually when you talk to me, you can see some boxing belts behind me, and I'm in my office at home, but I'm in an apartment in Auckland, and we've just started the second phase of the Joseph Parker Junior Farr fight. As you know, the fight was postponed prior to Christmas, and we have rescheduled it for February 27th at the Spark Arena in front of 12,000 people in Auckland.
Before we come on to that, I mean,
I'm bloody happy to be here in New Zealand at the moment. I tell you what, and I've been telling anyone I talk to, any of my friends from overseas and interviews that I've been doing, that here in New Zealand, it's like 2019. Everybody is going about their business, their day-to-day activity, their family life, their social life, as if there is no COVID in the world. It is unfriggin' believable.
Well, I'm very jealous of you, mate, and that's what I was just about to say. Before we come on to that, I am, very, very jealous at the prospect of fans. Let's just go back. You just mentioned Joseph Parker's injury before Christmas. The last time I spoke
No, actually, it wasn't, Rob, it wasn't Joe's injury.
Oh, it was Junior Farr's injury before.
Let me tell you this. Joseph Parker, we were having trouble with his elbows. And I said to Joe, and I could see in the gym, he was in a lot of discomfort. He was grimacing all the time. And it was no fun for me as his coach to watch him go through that sort of pain. He goes, mate, if I've got one arm I'm fighting, there is no chance. And I said, well, why? He goes, after the Chisora incident where he pulled out with the spider bite, he said, I'll never, ever. He said, I don't care how sick I am. And I said, well, mate, if it gets too bad, I'll pull you out. He goes, coach, we're fighting this guy with one arm if we have to. Anyhow, so Junior pulled out with an illness, which was very disappointing for all parties, for his team, our team, for the fans. We'd pre-sold, all the ringside tables were gone, and most of the tickets. And there were early sales of over 50,000 pay-per-view buys, which was pretty damn good for New Zealand. So it was a real disappointment, but the good thing is we were able to reschedule, and it was pretty touch and go because we have other things on down here. We have the America's Cup, which you probably don't know too much about, but it's a big yachting event that New Zealand happened to be the world champions in, and it's an event that brings a lot of money, and so that's on. It starts the week after our fight on February 27th.
Now, just to go back there, I did know it was Junior Farr who pulled out with the illness before, but obviously I had spoken to you briefly about Joseph Parker's elbows. How is he now, and how was his rehabilitation phase over Christmas?
Yeah, well, just so you know, so when the fight was off, and I said to Joe, okay, let's go back and see our specialist, and we have a guy here in Auckland called Dr. Craig Ball, who's one of the best in the world at elbows, and he had performed the first surgeries on Joe prior to the Anthony Joshua fight, December 2017. He said, look, with the CT straight away, you could see we had a lot of bone chips. We had a lot of areas that where we had calcium deposits. But most importantly, the elbow socket that the elbow rolls back in so the arm can be straightened had calcified practically 50%. And so that's why Joe was in so much pain and he couldn't straighten his arm. So we had the surgery on December 1 and December 11. Wouldn't do them both, obviously, at the same time. And the recovery on that has been terrific. He took all of December off. We started back in camp on January the 4th. This is our second week in training camp. It's an 8-week camp. Everything at the moment seems to be going very, very well. And I'm very happy to see Joe punching relatively pain-free. The good thing as his coach is I'm seeing a higher output in punches. I'm also seeing his right hand a lot straighter, a lot harder, a lot faster than what it was prior Christmas. We had our first sparring session yesterday, which is something we don't usually do till at least the third week. And this is halfway through, after a week and a half, we did our first session. He sparred 6 rounds yesterday, looked great. We're sparring 6 again tomorrow. So look, we're well on track at the moment, for Joe to be looking in really good form for this fight on the 27th. I don't know if you've seen any photographs of him, Rob, but he's in very good shape already, sitting on about 110 kilos. I'm very pleased with the athlete in front of me at the moment.
I have actually seen some photos of him. He does look in good shape, in fine fettle, as it were. Talk to me about the sparring. I know one of the things that we've always spoken about, particularly as you're usually based in the hotbed of sparring worldwide in Las Vegas. Talk to us about the difference and the difficulty in getting sparring for this. I know that you had some sparring partners in before the original date. I know you were working with the New Zealand amateur champion. What can you tell me about preparations for this with sparring?
Look, I tell you what, no excuse really for us for sparring, because the 2 guys that we have in camp are both very, very capable athletes. One of them you would have read a lot of stories on, David Nika. He's a 2-time Commonwealth gold medalist. He's turning pro on Joe's card. He's also, heading to the Olympics in Japan. A very, very skillful, very tall guy, similar in height to Junior Fa. So, and our other sparring partner is the current New Zealand super heavyweight champion, who is a young man who is going to be a very good fighter. And a lot of people have said to me, "Oh, you're using these 2 amateurs." Well, I know somebody else by the name of Anthony Joshua, who for years and years used all the amateurs in the Great Britain program, and it served him very well. I like the enthusiasm of the guys we're using. I like the energy of the guys we're using. I like the fact that they're still fairly raw and they give us 100% every day.
Now, one of the main sort of intangibles around this fight is the potential impact that it has on the WBO mandatory status or the WBO rankings in the heavyweight division, something that we've spoken about in several instances in the past. Let's just go back to before Christmas. One fight that had implications on that was Daniel Dubois versus Joe Joyce. I spoke to you before the fight. Now I'm going to speak to you after it. What did you think?
I thought it was a very impressive performance by Joe Joyce. And look, I'll openly say I was thrilled for Joe. I have a very good relationship with Adam Morley and Sam Jones, his management team, and I've had Joe in the gym in Vegas. Guido, my Italian heavyweight, has sparred a couple of 100 rounds with him. We like Joe, and we were rooting hard for him. And it just shows what it shows, and it even shows us coming into our fight with Junior Fa, that you look at the way the bookies wrote Joe Joyce off. Nobody gave him a chance. It was the number 2 fighting the number 11, and the number 11 convincingly won that fight. Was winning that fight very, very comfortably, and was in total control when the fight ended. So, and I said to Joe, so this is why, we could never, ever be complacent, and we must give Junior Fa, total respect, because he's the underdog against Joe. But, as we saw in the Joe Joyce, Daniel Dubois fight, the underdog with the right preparation, the right game plan, and the right purpose on fight night can shock a lot of people. Look, do I think that Joe Joyce should have gone to number 2? No. I think that I expect after number 3 Joseph Parker fights number 6 Junior Fa, that the WBO, who we've given great support to and great loyalty to for many, many years, in fact, Joe's whole career, we've worn their strap, we've fought exclusively for them for many years. We would expect that when 3 and 6 fight, that the winner of that fight will go to number 2. And that's what we'll be lobbying hard for. We know that there's still a little uncertainty at the top of the heavyweight picture. and we want to make sure that our ranking is as high as it possibly can be. And we believe that with number 3 fighting number 6, the winner of that fight should definitely go to number 2.
Just going back to Daniel Dubois and Joe Joyce, you make a good point there about not writing anybody off. Another thing that came out of that fight was the golfing experience, which is something that is also prevalent in Joseph Parker versus Junior Farr, particularly as a professional. How much do you think that Joseph Parker's experience on the night could play a factor?
Well, it'll obviously play a very big factor because, you know, Junior Farr is going to grounds that are unknown. He's never been in those positions before. He's never fought a real big name in heavyweight boxing. He's never fought in front of thousands of people. So, you know, we're going to find out exactly, you know, what Junior Farr is all about, and how one of the big factors is how will he, you know, control his emotions in the lead up to the fight. You know, we've seen a couple of things already where he's looked a little anxious, he's looked a little out of sorts because, you know, this is a big fight in New Zealand. You know, this is New Zealand are sporting mad fans. And this is a fight. They still talk about David Tua knocking out Shane Cameron, which was another big New Zealand fight, even though both, you know, neither guys were highly ranked in the world. You know, this is a fight for legacy. This is a fight that means a lot. So, you know, we will see Junior Farr under more pressure than ever before in his career. But the uncertainty is, you know, how deep can he dig? What can he produce? You know, when the stakes are the highest, what can he do? And I believe we'll get the best that Junior Farr has to offer. I think we'll see a better performance than we've ever seen from him before. It's just whether that performance is going to be good enough, you know, to beat an experienced quality fighter like Joseph Parker.
Make a good point there about the pressure on Junior Farr. It's a different type of pressure on Joseph Parker going into this fight, but pressure all the same.
Oh my God, there's like, you know, this is a career fight for us. Like, you know, Junior Farr, he's undefeated in 19 fights. But, you know, the expectations are not so great for him. If Farr was to beat Joseph Parker, this would be a life-changing event for him. It would put him into, you know, a real fight against a big name on a big stage. Joseph Parker has been against big names on big stages. He's won the world title, the 4th youngest guy in history to do so. He defended the title twice before, you know, losing it on points to Joshua in front of 80,000 people. We want to get back into a stage like that. We want the big fights again. And Joe knows that if he gets the wrong result here in this fight, we can forget about ever getting back to those big fights and on a big stage. So look, there's probably more pressure to perform for Joseph Parker than there is for Junior Farr. All the expectations are on Parker.
With the situation being the way it is with the WBO, all being well and Joseph Parker comes past Junior Farr, you may get to renew acquaintances with Sam Jones, with Adam Morley, and we could see Joseph Parker versus Joe Joyce.
Well, I tell you what, the two Joes fighting each other, I think, is a great fight. You know, it's a fight that would have a lot of meaning. It's a fight that would be received very, very well by the fans. It's a fight I believe would do good business. And it's a fight that we like. And it's a fight that I'm sure they like. Well, as we know, Joe Joyce has dodged no one. And I'm sure, you know, more than anything else, you know, Joe Joyce would like to seize at the opportunity to be the only guy ever to stop Joseph Parker that no one's ever been able to do. So, you know, I think it's a fight that has a lot of nice parts to it. It's a style where obviously Parker's got the speed, he's got the skill, he's got the ring generalship, But you know, Joe Joyce, as we know, he's a big unit. He's got a huge motor, and he's got an undefeated record, and he's working very hard to try and put himself in a position to fight for a title. And obviously, a Parker Joe Joyce fight would be significant enough to secure a mandatory position.
Who would Guido Vianello support in that fight?
That's a very good question. You'll have to ask Guido Vianello that question.
I certainly will ask him. Let's talk about Guido. Last time we saw him in the ring, terrible cut, very
Yes.
uncomfortable night's work against
Yes.
eBay. Where is he? Where do we stand with his return to the ring this year, Guido?
Guido's back in Italy. He's been doing a strength program for the last 2-3 months. He looks great at the moment. We know that in the world we live in these days, Italy is one of the countries that's in quite a mess. And I think that has concerned him. The fact that also in 2020, when everyone else was able to get home and be with their families, Guido was stuck in Las Vegas. It worked out good for the fact that he could have a couple of fights. As you know, he fought on the first televised show back after the first COVID outbreak. But I think he's very happy to be home with his family at the moment. We're in discussions with his management team and his personal manager, Luca, about options. We're looking at a date towards the end of March for him to fight against again on one of the top ranked cards who promote him, and we want to pick his career up. There's a lot of guys like Guido out there whose careers really sort of hit a bit of a roadblock last year. But the good thing for Guido is he was able to get in 2 fights. There were a lot of prospects and a lot of developing professionals who never fought at all in 2020. So we will be working hard to open some opportunities for him and to get him back into the heavyweight equation.
Going off the back of his last fight, as I mentioned, it was an uncomfortable night. We've spoken about it since, but now the dust has settled a little bit. How much are you hoping, at least, he will learn from that night and having that type of test so early in his career?
Yeah, look, it was not his best work. He didn't. He fell into an experience that sometimes young guys who get a lot of quick knockouts early in their career fall into, where you go looking to knock everyone out that's in front of you. And we knew that eBay was a dangerous, hard-hitting guy. We also had a good game plan to keep him on the outside and not let him get into the middle zone where he could be dangerous. And unfortunately, instead of Guido listening to and following through on what we had done in training camp, he saw an opportunity and went running in trying to finish him off early and ended up getting clipped across the eye and a bad cut, a cut that if I didn't have such a great cut man as Stitch Duran in the corner that night, it very well may have been stopped.
Yeah, thanks for Stitch Duran. Stitch Duran, a big boxing social favorite as well. Always a pleasure to hear Stitch Duran's name on the channel. Moving away from all things heavyweight, now I briefly mentioned this to you before. I think the 2 most frustrating divisions or sort of sanctioning bodies within a division is probably the 135-pound division with the WBC and the 175-pound division with the WBO. Now, what is going on with your charge, Umar Salamov? I know the 4-man box office has been something that's been rumbling on now for probably the best part of a couple of years, 18 months or so it's been rumbling on.
No, it hasn't, mate. It was actually it was put in place. Was put in place officially like February of 2020. So it's coming up to a year. But when that 4-man box off was put in place, the plan was obviously to get the 2 semi-final fights, and then the 2 winners would fight at the end of last year. didn't happen for obvious reasons. But you know, Joe Smith did a very good job in his part of that equation, and stopped Alvarez. Elder, what's his Elder Alvarez?
Elder
Yeah, and he did a really nice job of it. He showed a lot of power. He showed a lot of poise. I think he's developed as a fighter, and he secured his slot in that 175-pound WBO title. Umar Salamov was scheduled to fight Maxim Blasov in an all-Russian fight on the 20th of November in Minsk in Belarus. And a week before the fight, Umar came down with COVID, and which removed him out of the equation. And after discussions, all parties agreed for Maxim to move into the final picture and fight Joe Smith for the 175-pound title. Salamov is still sitting there very highly ranked at just below both those two guys in the rankings. We expect, now that he's back training, we'll have him in Las Vegas sometime in February. And I'd like for him to fight the winner of that fight.
Who do you think the winner will be in that fight?
Well, look, I tell you what, we've got Maxim Blasov, who I have been working in an advisory role with. We have him training in our gym in Las Vegas. My son Taylor is managing that training camp for him. He has his coach Victor has come out from Russia. Vlasov's a very durable, very good, very experienced campaigner. He's 34 years old, but he turned pro at the age of 18. He's fought some very big names. He's very good record, 45-3. Had a great amateur background before that, was going to be chosen to go to the Olympics, but chose to turn pro at 18. Has fought all around the world, has a very, very awkward style, is very durable, and very hard to fight against. So, Joe Smith, we know, is a serious puncher. He's got good strength. He likes to come forward and let his hands go and try and beat you down. But as we saw in the Bivol fight, Bivol completely outboxed him. Bivol's ring generalship was too good for the strength and the power of Joe Smith. And I'm thinking that Vlasov, fighting at his best, in good shape, will be a very difficult opponent for Joe Smith.
While we're touching on things in the 175-pound division, a fight that I would love to see this year, as I'm sure a lot of boxing fans and you yourself would like to see, is Dmitry Bivol against Artur Beterbiev, the unified light heavyweight champion. What would you make of that fight if that fight was to come off?
Look, I think that's a great fight. It's especially a great fight in Russia, and they're starting to open up to actually buying and paying for boxing now, which is good for our sport. It's also going to make the sport more attractive in Russia. Beterbiev, very, very powerful guy. Bivol, very good fighter. Beterbiev, you'd have to think he's coming towards the end of his career. He's getting a little old, but extremely powerful. Bivol, I think Bivol is a small light heavyweight, not the heaviest handed puncher, but a very capable, very slick boxer. I'd like to see Bivol come down to super middleweight. He said he can make super middleweight. I think that he would create a real buzz in the super middleweight division. Whether that fight comes off with him and Beterbiev in the 175-pound division, I don't know. Would be hard to bet against Artur Beterbiev. simply for the power that he possesses. You know, he has huge power, and whether you're outboxing him or not, it only takes that one split second for him to put you into trouble. And we saw that, you know, in his last unification fight.